Alright, here we're going to talk about percent of change. So the amount something changes by is the difference between two numbers. Percent of change is representing that amount of change as a percent compared to the original amount. So we're going to talk about this warm-up question, and it's kind of just comparing those two things that I just talked about. The amount something changes by, the amount, which could be a dollar amount or inches, it could be a measurement, whereas the percent of change is always going to be a percentage, how much that amount compares to the original amount, the old amount. So we have a new backpack that costs $50. Would we rather get 50% off or $35 off? So this is a percent that is going to change by. It's changing by 50%. 50% of $50 is $25. That's the amount that it changes by. This is the amount. This is a percentage. So really we'd rather have the $35 off. It's just more money. 50% off sounds good, but that's only $25 off. So later in this video, we're going to be talking about which one of these is the better deal. Right now, I'm just introducing it. $125 off a Nintendo Switch 2 that cost $449.99, or $150 off an Xbox that cost $599. So immediately, it might seem like that's the better deal because you save more money. 150 is more than 125. We're actually going to see that maybe that's not so true because we're comparing it to the starting amount. A percent of change is always thinking about how much something changes compared to the original price, or original amount that it is. Percent of change can be an increase or a decrease. An increase or decrease, written as a percentage of the original amount. So percent increase goes up, percent decrease goes down. Our first step is to figure out how much something changes by. Before we change it into a percent, we need to think about just how much it changes by, which is finding the difference. So we find the difference between the new amount and the original amount. That just means we subtract the new minus the old. Then we take that change and we divide by the original amount. That's going to give us a decimal. Then we multiply it by 100 to change it into a percent. So I'm already using these words, but anytime you see original amount, I'm going to call that the old, and the new amount, I'm just going to call that the new. So this is our equation. The new minus the old divided by the old times 100. New minus the old is just how much it changes by. Then we divide that by the old amount and times by 100 to change that into a percent of change. Alright, so the bar graph shows the millions of video game consoles sold. Find the percent of change from 2011 to 2012. So 2011 to 2012. Even though those are numbers, we're actually not going to use those. That's just marking the year. We're using the video game consoles sold in each of those years. So it was 676, and now it's 580. It used to be 676. 2011 is the old one. 2011 is older than 2012. That's the new one. So 580 is our new amount. 676 is our old amount. And now we can just substitute into this equation directly. The new minus the old divided by the old times 100. It's 580 minus 676 divided by 676 times 100. I'm going to show you how to do this directly in Desmos. 580 minus 676 divided by 676 and then times by 100. It's the new minus the old divided by the old times 100. When you type this in, make sure it looks exactly like this. You have to have the subtraction problem on top of that big fraction. If we don't have instructions on how to round, we're going to round to the tens place. So right now it's a 2. Since the next number is a 0, we're just going to keep it as a 2. So it's going to be negative 14.2%. It's a negative number because this is going down. It's showing that it's a decrease from 676 down to 580. That's what that negative number or negative sign really implies, that it's a decrease going from the old to the new. All right, number 2. 2 years ago, FCPS had 5 snow days. Last year, we had 12 snow days. Find the percent of change from 2 years ago to last year. 2 years ago is older than last year. That's the new one. So a lot of this is just going to be about reading carefully and assigning these values. The new one is 12. That's last year. The old one is 2 years ago. That's 5. Now I can substitute it into this equation. New minus old divided by the old times 100. 12 minus 5 divided by 5 times 100. $12 minus 5, it's new minus the old, divided by 5, times 100 gives me 140. So that's saying it's increased by 140%. It went from 5 up to 12. Really, I just want you to think about, what does this percentage actually mean? If something increases by 100%, that means it just doubles. If it goes up from 5 to 10, that's 100% increase because it's exactly doubling. That just means it's more than doubling. It's going up 100% and then a little bit more, which makes sense. We're going from 5 up to 12. That's a little bit more than double. All right, so on the first 2 problems, we had to do the new minus the old because we didn't know how much it changed by yet. There's going to be some problems where you actually don't have to calculate that. It's just going to tell you how much it changes, and that's the number that goes on top. Remember, it's always the new minus the old on top, which is how much it changes by, divided by the old, times 100. So Henry bought a pair of Nike shoes for $180. He decided to resell the shoes with a markup of 70. It's going up by 70. What's the percent increase in price? This is not the new price. This $70 is how much we're increasing it by. So you could, if you wanted to, find the new amount. It starts at 180. It's going up by 70. That's 250. The old is 180. So we could find the new and the old and just use that equation, the new minus the old, divided by the old times 100. But they're actually already telling us this part, that change amount is this markup amount. 250 minus 180 could go on top, or we could just directly use that change amount. That is 70 over 180 times 100. When you do that in the calculator, you get 38.8888 repeating. Again, if we're not given instructions, we want to round to the tens place. So it's going to end with this number here. Right now it's an 8, but the next number is an 8 also. If that's a 5 or bigger, it forces this to go up. So it's going to be 38.9%. All right, the price of a new laptop decreased by $200. We went down by $200. That's how much it changes by. That's supposed to say change. The laptop originally costs $1,000. That is the old price. Find the percent of change. So this is just like this last one. Here they told us how much it changed by. We put that directly on top. We don't need to add or subtract because they're telling us how much it changed by already. It went down by 200. That's negative 200. Divided by the old amount, which is 1,000, times 100. We're going to put that in Desmos, and you end up with negative 20%. And again, that makes sense. It's a negative number because it decreased by $200. The stock price of a company was $28. It used to be $28. That is our old amount. The stock price fell to 60 cents. That's the new amount, which is closest to the percent of decrease. So we have the new, we have the old. Here we could just subtract. 60 cents minus 28, that's going to help us find the change. Divided by 28, that's the old one, times 100. So we get 97.8. So of these choices, it's closest to 98%. I also want you to notice that we dropped the negative sign. It was 97.8, 0.9 if we round. We have a negative sign here because when you subtract, that gives you a negative number. It's going down. It's going from 28 down to 60 cents. So it should be negative. But none of these answers show it as a negative. It's because the way the question is phrased. It's saying it's a percent decrease. That's already implying that it's going down. It's just going down by that amount. So that's why there's no negative sign on any of these answers. All right. Last one, back to the warm-up question. Which one of these is the better deal? $125 off the Switch that costs about $450, or $150 off the Xbox that costs $599. So here they're telling us how much these are both going to change by. That's the discount amount. These are both the original amount. So we don't need to add or subtract here on top. They're telling us the amount it's changing by. It's $125 compared to the original amount of $449.99 times 100 to change it into a percent. Same thing for that second one. 150 divided by 599 times 100. We're just going to compare those two percentages. So 27.7, really 27.8, that's going to round up, versus pretty much exactly 25. All right, so this is 25%. This is 27.8%. Oops, 27.8%. The better deal is the one that's decreased by more. That's a bigger discount than that. So the Nintendo Switch is the better deal. All right, that is percent of change.